disaster and emergencies like we've seen in recent weeks can cause a lot of anxiety and just feelings of being overwhelmed.
While cleanup and relief efforts can go on for months, now is the time for you to recover your well-being. Joining us over Zoom is Dr. Sylvia Vilches from the Alabama Cooperative Extension System. And this message could be great timing for someone who is still processing what has happened in the counties affected by the severe weather recently.
Yes, we kind of tend to focus on what we need to do in the moment, and that makes us busy. But in actual fact, we also need to calm down. Some of our body response during and after an emergency, whether it's a personal emergency or a community emergency, causes our hormonal systems, our adrenaline and other systems to kick into gear. And that's great if we need that fight, flight response, but we also afterwards need to calm down.
What are some things we can do to calm down and just improve your well-being in the aftermath?
Yeah, it's kind of counterintuitive in the moment when you're thinking of all the things that have to happen. But one of the things that you can do is take a moment to tune into your senses. And this helps both yourself and your family. If you have children or loved ones who are around, you might just want to take a moment and look around you, focus. And then if you can, if it's safe to do so and you're in a good spot, you might want to think about your senses. Listen, what do you hear? Even in or in the hours immediately following an emergency, listen, you might hear birds. You might hear people talking. You might hear cars in the distance. And those things kick you out of your brain focus and kick you back into your body. So what we want to do is slowly recover that moment so that we can regain our habits and sleep better, calm our nervous system down, so that then we can focus and make those logical plans that we need to for moving forward.
I want to talk about children right now, because even if they were not directly affected by the storm damage, if they're driving to church, driving to school, they may be driving through the storm damage and seeing it. And this can be very scary for them. How can we talk to our children about what they are seeing and experiencing?
Right. We had a little conversation about this before the show. And even if you're not really affected, children are going to be aware. They're going to have friends in school. They're going to see the news. Maybe they have relatives who've been affected. And we tend to want to protect children from these images, but they're aware of it. And what we can do is kind of think forward for them. We can help them imagine the future when things will start to be better. So we were talking about, think about the trees. Trees have been damaged, but they'll be cleaned up, and then in the spring, they'll start to sprout new branches. So children are very concrete. They kind of can't connect with that idea that this is unlikely to happen again. It happened, right? As we all know too, it did happen and it does affect us. But we can look for those concrete signals that change is coming. We can start to rewrite the story.
We hear this all the time with any health story, but really, how important are things like drinking water and getting a good night's sleep?
Yeah, exactly. For children and for parents, that adrenaline kicks in, and then what we need to do is regain that balance. So if you are directly affected by an emergency, your habitual routine is disrupted. And one of the things that will move us towards calmness is having that routine again. So whatever you can do to move towards hydration, warmth. We talked a little bit about in an immediate aftermath, when your adrenaline system kicks in, when you start to calm down, you become cold because all that blood has moved to your extremities, and you might shake from the adrenaline, but you also might get cold. So use a blanket. We often think we want to put children into some safe place, but where they feel safest is with us. Put your arms around them, hug them. If you have a coat, put your coat maybe around them. They'll feel so good to be wrapped up in your coat. A dad can give his son his coat, and it just feels good. So if you can do that and it's safe, think of those things that bring you and your children closer.
That's some great advice. It's something that makes perfect sense, but may not have thought of that one. You know, there are people after storms like we've seen recently who get weather anxiety when they see rain or even just a dark cloud that can spark those fears. What can we do for anxiety when we know severe weather is possibly headed our way?
Right. There's both the anticipation, and then once you've been through that, any kind of startle or some kind of noise can trigger that feeling of fear. So in the aftermath, those feelings might last for quite a long time. They might come up for a year or 2 years. And so be gentle. Know that that's going to happen. You might want to spend extra time cuddling, and you might want to think about night lights. You might want to show that there are communication devices like this channel that will warn us, and we can pay attention to that. In the preparation, in the moment coming up, you want to have those things that are familiar to you ready for in your go pack. So we talk a lot about having photos, or you might want to have recorded messages from grandparents or people that you're connected to, and children will listen to those and they feel reassured by the sound of voices that they know.
Where can people go for more tips and more information?
Well, our extension system has an emergency handbook, and we're working on more messaging to support families and children to address the emotional impacts of these disasters that we're seeing more and more often.
This is so important. We thank you so much for joining us. Some great information that you've shared with us today.
Thank you so much.